Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namse Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasadi Nishesha Punyavadi Pasha Devitari Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Vipasindhubhyayevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The Lord, please guide us all to understand the words that you have shared, that will fulfill the destiny that you have for us. Hare Krishna. Hare. Thank you very much for coming today. And today I'll speak on how the Bhagavad Gita's wisdom can enrich and empower us in our daily lives. So I'll talk about it based on this particular verse from the Bhagavad Gita, 4.9. But I'll be using, broadly speaking, an acronym WIT. So first W will be the worldview. What is the worldview with which we function? And then I'll talk about what is the implication of that worldview, and then how understanding that worldview can transform our lives. So let's begin with this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is 4.9. So let's recite the verse. Those of you are comfortable, you can follow me. Otherwise, you can just listen. Vitarag bhaya krodha Maya mamupashitaha Bahavo jnana tapasa Bhutamadbhavamagataha. Once more. Vitarag bhaya krodha Maya mamupashitaha Bahavo jnana tapasa Bhutamadbhavamagataha. One last time, all of us together. Not responsibly, but together. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashitaha bhavo jnana tapasa bhutamadbhavamagataha. So this is my latest book on the Bhagavad Gita, where I've taken some of the Gita verses and presented them as prayers. So we take the wisdom of the Gita and then offer a prayer based on that. So you can repeat with me after this. What the theme that we'll be taking based on this verses? Free me. Repeat after me. Free me. Free me from the three obstacles to devotion. Attachment, fear, and anger. Free from passion, fear, and anger. So, free from passion, fear, and rage. In devotional service to me, the wise engage. Through knowledge and penance diligent, they reach my being of pure effulgence. This is broadly the worldview of the Bhagavad Gita we are talking about. Now, I've been traveling across the world for about the last 10 years, and I've spoken to people from many different religious backgrounds, philosophical orientations, cultural tendencies, and So whatever be the differences and disagreements we may have, there are three words which convey a truth that resonates across history and across geography, across cultures and across civilizations. Now, what are those three words? Life is isn't it? We may be wealthy, we may be poor, we may be popular, we may be unknown. Life is not easy for you. The specific nature of difficulty may be different, but life is difficult for everyone. And that is just the fact of life. Some of you notice that I need crutches for walking. When I was one, because of a medical mistake, I was given a vaccine of polio, which had a high dosage of the polio germs in it. So that's how I ended up with it. So that's a limitation that I have faced throughout my life. And one of the things that really helped me face that situation was an incidental statement that my mother made when she was talking with a relative, distant relative was consoling her and saying, "You're so sad, your son got polio." And my mother said that whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. I don't know why she said that. Or, I mean, I just thought I probably was 2.5 or 3. But somehow that word stayed with me. That helped me to reshift my focus on the intellectual ability. But now, as I talk with people, to some extent, I feel I am in a better place than others. Because everybody is wounded in some ways, but my wounds are visible. So if I'm traveling, I'll have easier assistance. If somebody will carry my luggage, so in that sense, because my limitations are visible, I get a lot of support. Somebody may have it traumatized in their childhood because of something. Somebody may suffer a painful loss, a betrayal. Everybody's life story has a tragedy somewhere in it. So it is that we all experience the darkness of it. And then when we turn towards worldview, I'm using the word worldview in a generic sense, but it is philosophy. It's like many people may not say, if you ask it's not a topic of small talk. You meet somebody at a party. So, what is your philosophy of life? What's wrong with you? That's not what most people talk about generally. But even if we don't use the word philosophy, we all have some way in which we view the world, some way in which we try to make sense of the world, and our place and purpose in the world. And basically, when I use the word worldview, we could use it in the sense of philosophy, but I'm also using it in the sense that our worldview determines the story we tell ourselves. The story we tell ourselves about ourselves, in terms of our place and purpose in the world. So now, if we consider the toughness of life, how do we go about this? One way we may face it is, something bad things happen in life, some good things also happen. Tolerate the bad and we get to the good things in life. That's one way we may tolerate, and that's nice. That's nice. We need some way or the other to look at life and face it. Now, broadly, the worldviews that we can have for facing life's challenges can be summarized in a 4-quadrant diagram. So almost any worldview that anyone has, the specifics may vary, but it falls in this category, these 4 categories. This world is the world of our daily experience. Now, this world we may consider to be real, or we may consider it to be unreal. And there is other world. There's some other world that is there. Now, that we may consider to be real, or that we may consider to be unreal. So based on that, we can have 4 quadrants. That this world is real, the other world is unreal. Both worlds are unreal, and only the other world is real. This world is false, and both the worlds are real. So in this framework, Which do you think is the worldview most people have nowadays? Which quadrant? Quadrant? Quadrant one. Okay. Yeah. So this is what we call as materialism. So if we go back even to a few centuries before, what and the Western history is called as the scientific enlightenment. Before that, almost everyone had the idea that there's another world beyond this world. And that is the place of shelter. That is the place of reality and real satisfaction and real security and real happiness. More or less, most people have from a practical world perspective rejected that. Maybe some people, when our say relatives pass away, we may put a photo and say Swargavasi or Kailashvasi or Vaikunthavasi, something like that we may think. But it's almost like nominally we put it. So basically, the idea is this world is all that exists. And this world is the only real world. This is one world, you know. So Krishna is telling that we want to grow spiritually, Gita Raga Bhaya Krodha. So this worldview leads to Raga. Raga means attachment or strong desire. Is the worldview of desire. If this world is the only world that is real, then what happens? We are desperate to make the most of this life. We're desperate to enjoy this world, to get all the pleasures that we can lay our hands on. And now, I'll just first go over all the worldviews. Then I'll talk about them. See, the way I approach philosophy is more from a psychological perspective. What is the psychological implication of this particular philosophy? So, life is tough was the starting axiom we began with. Now, life is tough, but this is the only life that we have. This is the only world that is real. And what do? Somehow we have to fight and make things better and become happy in life. And the implication I'll talk about a little later. Now, some people gravitate even that as science has progressed a little bit more. See, if you see, science can also deconstruct things. While we could say science, in one sense, has fueled this worldview, like science says, when the first cosmonaut from Russia is supposed to have gone into space, he said, I went to the sky, I didn't see any God over there, so there's no God. So the idea was, it's a very naive argument, that the God is not like an, if you ask any serious theologian, God is a spiritual being. God is not like an undiscovered planet around Saturn that we're not yet. We just need some more technology, some careful observation and finding. God is a spiritual being. But anyway, the idea is science has led to some extent materialism. There is no other word. But those people who study science very seriously, those who have a philosophical approach to science, they can actually go toward this worldview. Because if we really are rigorously scientific, then everything can be reconstructed. The love that a mother feels for a child, what is that? That is just some secretion of chemicals in the brain. And every single thing, every single cherished human experience can be reduced to just some chemical interaction. And then from that perspective, we are just a set of chemicals who have somehow come alive, and we are alive for some time, and we die. So even this world, especially if we go into quantum physics and its practical applications, its implications, nothing is real. Einstein is said to have said that I would like to believe that the moon continues to exist even if I'm not looking at it. It's obviously it continues to exist, but quantum physics says that actually there is no such thing as a tangible reality. Now I'm simplifying things very much over here, but that is the other part that basically there are, whenever there's an observer, then the wave function collapses, and that's where we perceive something. So, and not just from a philosophical perspective, as of the nature of reality, but the nature of human emotions. So nothing is real. Nothing is real. And this is the worldview of nihilism. Nihilism can have many different meanings, but I use it in a particular sense. Nihilism is everything is false. And Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. So this is the worldview of Krodha. And Krodha is what? Anger. But anger is a hot emotion. When anger becomes deep rooted, it goes to the level of despair. Despair is the point of living. And in fact, the prominent existentialist philosopher Alberto Camus said that existence is suffering. The more you try to remove the suffering, the more actually the suffering increases. Therefore, the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. So, unfortunately, this is a very, among all the worldviews, we all need at least some sense of meaning and value in our life. If nothing is real, nothing really matters, what is the point even of living? So nihilism is a very dark world. That now there is a worldview. So right now I'm not talking psychological implications so much. I'm mentioning it briefly. The third worldview is where that this world is false and the other world is real. Now this is the worldview of impersonalism. Impersonalism, or what it holds is that actually this whole world is mass. This is a misunderstanding of the Eastern or Indian worldview. Someone say Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. Sometimes there are aphorisms or short statements which convey deep truths. But sometimes the short statements convey distorted truth, not deep truths. You see, in the same Vedic tradition, which gives some statement like this, the avatar of the Lord comes down into this world to set things right. So if this world were illusion, then why set things right in the illusion? The more things become miserable in the illusion, and the more likely is people want to come out of the illusion. Why set things right in the illusion? But this world is not considered false within the broad teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So, but this is a worldview where it leads to bhaya. Bhaya can be called as fear, but when fear is a psychological emotion. But when fear becomes very deep rooted and existential, it becomes dread. So there's the worldviews of desire, despair, and dread. Now, why dread? Because if this world is false and the other world is real, then everything that seems real in this world is just a trap. So all the attractive things in the world, all the pleasures of this world are just traps. And therefore, the whole point of living in the world is we dread getting trapped in the world. And this is a very world rejecting and life sapping worldview. And even people, philosophers who propagate this worldview actually don't live this worldview. Because at a practical level, we cannot live like this. So now the Gita's worldview is in this fourth category. That this world is real and the other world also is real. And this we can call it as the Gita's world, we can call it, Srila Prabhupada uses this word in his early Back to God articles. We can call it devotionalism. Now, devotionalism is the worldview that leads to bhava, not bhaya, but bhava. Bhava means emotion or devotion specific. So we understand that it is God who exists. There's another world, there is this world, and we can connect with God through devotion in this world as well as the other world. I'll talk about the implications shortly. But what the Gita is telling us over here is that these three worldviews, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, these three worldviews need to be given. Each of these worldviews is a trap in a particular. So now these worldviews, the specifics can vary, like, okay, what is the nature of the other world? The Bible may talk about the nature of the other world in a particular way. The Jewish worldview or the Islamic worldview may talk about it in another way. But that there is another world, there's this world. That dynamic is always there. So now let's move forward and look at what was the acronym I was going to discuss. You remember that one? Bit, yes. So W was what? Worldview. Now I is the implication of this word. So if we consider what is the implication, let's start with the four worldviews one by one. Materialism. Now, materialism holds that this world is the only real world, and therefore this is the world that we need to live in. Now, an extreme version of materialism is where materialism aggressively considers the other world to be false. Within materialism, there are two variants. Within materialism, there is functional materialism. Functional materialism means people may not have really thought about it, but the way they live, it is matter is all that matters. And nothing matters beyond it. And beyond that, there is fanatical materialism. Normally, we associate the word fanatical with religion. So, fanatical materialism. So, fanatical materialism is what was presented by, say, communism. We said religion is the opium of the masses. Their idea is that the hope of some other world and improvement in some other world prevents people from making efforts to improve things in this world. And that's how people end up becoming very aggressive. That so, for example, during the communist rule, nowadays there's a lot of news about religious extremism and stuff like that, and that is sadly true. But materialistic extremism is no less. If you consider the history of communism in Soviet Russia and China, without any war, any major war, the government itself killed 100 million people. More than First World War and the Second World War combined. So what is the attempt is to create a utopia on this earth. There is no other heaven, so we have to make this world into heaven. Now we can try to do this in a different ways. We can try to do it through political ways. We can try to do it through technological ways. We try to do that. And in one sense, we humans naturally want to improve things. We all, at the core of our being, we feel, I deserve more in life. There has to be something more to life. That urge to improve is wonderful. It is essential to the very fabric of our being. How we direct it. So it was attempted to be direct to the political means. So what happened was that the state decided there are people who are wealthy, there are people who are poor. And the wealthy have got wealth by exploiting others. So take the wealth from the wealthy and give it to the poor. And that way everybody will have equal wealth. But the problem with that was that who will decide to take wealth and give wealth? And those people became extremely poor. George Orwell was a British social commentator, and he said that in communism, all people are equal, but some are more equal than others. So eventually, the result of this is fanatical materialism. It can be very destructive. Because what we are trying to do is, we're trying to create a utopia in the world. So it could be done. So we could go in the political direction. And we see to some extent in America, it's that political polarization is at all-time high now. So because each political orientation, whether the left or the right, has their own idea of what is hell and what is heaven. And they say that if this particular party comes in rule, that's going to be hell for us. And if this particular leader comes into power, that's going to be heaven for us. And it's in many ways, religious terminology is appropriate in the political domains. And it's just too much unrealistic expectation from the head of state. The head of state is not God. And making the head of state into God is a dangerous illusion. But either way, now we can go in the political domain. That has turned out to be an issue. Now we can go in the technological domain. Our technological domain was where people thought that We will increase through technology the comforts of life, or we'll remove the discomforts of life. It's too cold, we'll have heaters. It's like there are so many diseases, we'll come up with cures. And in that way, we will remove the distresses of life. And to some extent, this has been successful. Life today is far more comfortable than what it was 50 years ago or 500 years ago. In fact, today we have access to comforts and conveniences that even 50 years ago, and certainly 100 years ago, were unimaginable for even royalty, what to speak of being accessible to royalty. Anybody with a mediocre income can, decent income can travel in airplane, can have Wi-Fi, so many things. So, have we created heaven on earth? Have we removed distress from life? Well, certainly we have made ourselves more comfortable. But at a physical level, we have made ourselves comfortable. But unfortunately, at a mental level, we have made ourselves somehow miserable. The irony today is that people are comfortably miserable. So we may be in an air-conditioned room and we are depressed. We are in a very comfortable couch, lying down, and there some people are just so stressed. So somehow that dream of making this world into paradise or heaven is not working. Life is still distressful. This is the distress has shifted to a large extent from the visible physical domain to the invisible mental domain. And sometimes it can be even more crippling, even more damaging. A lot of people can live in denial of that. Now, another problem is that you see, we have ended up creating virtual worlds. Now, virtual reality is one thing, but if somebody from 10,000 years came back to the 21st century, and or 20th century, late 20th century, 21st century, whatever, they came back, what would be the defining relic of the time that we live in? You could say the defining relic would be entertainment. It could be movies, it could be TV shows. So for just like a 1 hour TV show or a 1.5, 2 hour movie, millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent. Entertainment has always been a part of human history. We all need it. Just as the body needs rest, our mind needs relaxation and rejuvenation. But entertainment is meant to be a break from life. For many people nowadays, life is a break from entertainment. Like the virtual world, whether it is video games or whether people become fans of a particular TV show, there is Comic Cons and all this. So people treat this as if it's realer than reality. Most people on the phone, what is happening on the phone is more real than what is happening in front of them. There are cases where some tragedies are happening. Stopping the tragedy, people are more concerned about filming the tragedy. There are cases of people who want to take selfies in dangerous poses just to get some views on social media, and they end their life. Fall off, they slip and fall off. There was in California, I was there. There's a place called a selfie spot over there in California, one particular. They renamed it as a selfie suicide spot. So many people end up losing their lives. It's not official renaming. It's such a dangerous thing over there. So somehow we using technology, we rejected the idea of any religious or philosophical other world, but through technology we have created another world. And we try to rush into that world as quickly as we can. One friend showed me a cartoon. A couple, man is the bar talking with his friend. And so yesterday my Wi-Fi went down, so I spent some time with my family. They seem to be like nice people. Like we get more concerned about say what is happening in Serbia than what is happening in our spouse's mind or heart. We're concerned with what is happening in China than what is happening in our children's lives. We're completely lost. And apparently Serbia and China are real places. But people get caught in what is happening in the next Harry Potter series or the next superhero series or next this series or that series. We have tried to create a fictional world which, if we say, I don't consider it real, but they know, okay, you may not philosophically consider it real, but practically, nowadays, any entertainment show that becomes popular, it has this whole merchandise that it goes with, we call it merc. And sometimes they make more money through the merchandise than through the original movie also. In India, there was a boxer from the far Middle East, not Middle East, the Far East, I think Mary Common. Now the movie was made about her. And now the actress who made the movie, she earned more money for the movie than this boxer earned throughout her life. So what happens is that we have created our own version of another world. And we are trying to go into that. And what Marx said, that the religion is the opium of the masses. Today you can see technology is the opium of the masses. That now, I'm not saying technology is bad, but I'm saying that technology it has the potential to do that. That in trying to get lost in the other world, we are trying to immerse ourselves in the other world. We are actually neglecting relationships in the real world. We are neglecting activities in the real world. And we are unfortunately ending up making the world a far worse place than it needs to be. When we have a phone, you can use the phone for two broad purposes. One is to get things done. And for that, it is very convenient and very powerful. This is not a tirade against technology. This is not at all. It is I'm focusing on the world view over here. But we can also use the phone to get away from things. So a phone can become an escape strategy. And that is where we can retreat from the world around us. And this is it's very powerful if you're using it to get things done. But when you use it for getting away from things, then it can disconnect us from people, it can disconnect us from what is meaningful in life. And essentially, we are creating another world. Now, I'm not going to get into the problem of loneliness and how so many people nowadays have AI friends and AI partners and AI girlfriends and AI boyfriends. And one of my friends is big in robotics research. He's telling me that one of the two biggest sources of funding for robotics, one comes from Amazon, where they want efficient robots for packing and unpacking. And the second is sex bots, that people basically want to have romantic partners. And it's very difficult to form relationships, very difficult to trust. I was in California and I was going for a program. And there, I had this bumper sticker in a car was there. The more I get to know people, the more I love my dog. So we live in crowded cities, but we are a lonely society. Now, I'm not pinning the blame on technology for all this. What I'm saying is my argument is very precise and careful. It is saying that technology has not created the paradise. That was the beginning promise at the start of the age of science and technology. And what we have is, in many ways, we are trying to create a virtual world, and we're going to that. But that is not a solution. So the implication of the world view, this world is the only real world, is that if we want to create paradise in this world, then we end up creating a nightmare over here. If we do aggressive political change, if we try to do aggressive technological change, then there's another kind of nightmare, which is there's loneliness. There are mental health problems that come. Now, the second worldview is nihilism. Nihilism is where neither this world is real nor the other world is real. Now, most people at a philosophical level may not even have heard the word nihilism. But unfortunately, at a psychological level, many have adopted this. What do I mean by psychological level? People feel, what is the meaning of anything in life? What is the value? What is the value of getting education? What is the value of getting a job? What is the value of having a family? What is the value of doing anything at all in life? And it's in the Vedic tradition, there is this concept of artha. Now, artha can mean money. Artha can mean money, but artha can also mean meaning itself. So we all need some source of meaning in life. And now money can be a basic source of meaning, but it's not enough. Like making money is important, but what we are making with money is even more important. Now, if the way we are living, especially among young people, and especially young people who are educated in universities, which are the humanities, it's not a critic of humanities, but often there's a tendency to deconstruct everything. And when everything is deconstructed, then life just becomes stripped of meaning. It's the point of living at all. We don't have any sense of value in life. And see, at the base, forget spirituality. If we just consider biology, biologically, we are designed for two things. We're designed for surviving and reproducing. That's how species continue. We will see what we call as technological progress. That has actually taken away the impetus for both of these things. It is humans is the only species that is known to commit suicide. Now, there are some dogs who also commit suicide, but those dogs are contaminated by human association. So, in fact, if we consider basic biology, every living being does these two things. They fight to survive and then they fight to reproduce. Now, what is happening? Both of these, the impetus is going on. Surviving, people are ending their lives. The World Health Organization called this a tragic social health problem. More than 1 million people commit suicide every year. So now, what about reproducing? Less and less people are having children. While there's a big concern about population explosion, now there's a big concern about population implosion, depopulation, especially in the Western world. If there had been no immigration, the population would have gone down alarmingly. Now, immigration, indiscriminate, has its own problems. I'm not making a political statement over here about the nature of immigration. I'm simply making a demographic statement that if what even the animals do, if we humans are losing the impetus to even do that, then a civilization that is leading to that has something seriously wrong with it. So if people feel now there could be many reasons why people don't want to have children. One is they don't have enough income to even have a home, and then how will you take care of children? Another could be that oh, the planet is a terrible place. I don't want to bring people into this children into this world. Or some people might just feel that like in most traditional societies, if somebody don't have children, they would say childless, and that's a sad thing. It's not a death. It should not be condemning a person for that, but it's childless. Nowadays, there are people who change the vocabulary. Say, I'm a child-free person. It's a terrible thing. As if a child is a burden. Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that gives meaning to people's lives is to we all have a need to nurture, and then we can be someone for everyone. We can be something for everyone, or we can be everything for someone. And we can be something for everyone means we can become very popular, we can have a big career, we can become famous. But for the world, every celebrity is basically interchangeable. One celebrity goes to another person. So we can choose to be something for everyone, or we can choose to be everything for someone. Now, when a parents take care of a child, the parents are everything for someone. And at a level of relational nourishment, that actually fulfills the heart much more. So nihilism is affecting us at a psychological level, where the basic thing which even animals do, we are demotivating ourselves to do that. That is very, very toxic. Now, if we go towards the third world viewers, impersonalism, where this world is false, the other world is real. Now, this worldview is not present very much at present, but this is what actually dogged and damaged much of Indian medieval history. So that was the time when impersonalism was very prominent, and now there can be many causes for history. We cannot do a unifactor analysis of any historical phenomenon, but it's it's almost every time when the Islamic invaders came to India, their number was always lesser than the Hindu kings who were defending. And never in the history of the world has it happened that, like what happened with the British Empire, so small a number of people ruled so large a number of people for so long, almost 150 years. So one reason for this was just that this whole world is false. Whatever happens, this is the domain of Maya. Just don't care for it. And nobody can live without caring for it. So what happened was Indians at a large level became very concerned about protecting their own bubbles. Like every family will take care of themselves, the community will take care of themselves. But the sense of the civic spirit of a nation, of trying to change the system. Like Indians are very good at rising through whatever system that is there. So, but changing the system. So, as whichever I travel all over the world, whichever part of the world I have gone to, if Indians are there, Indians are respected immigrants. People are respected as a polite word. A more precise word is they're envied immigrants. Respect and envy is the same thing, isn't it? Respect is, hey, you're so good. Envy is, why are you so good? So, respect and envy, basically, respect is, like rather, envy is respect given unwillingly and unhappily. It's the same thing. But the point is that nihilism afflicted India quite a bit. And no, not nihilism, impersonalism. So, if we start thinking this whole world is just false, why endeavor for anything? So that is a very disempowering world. Ecologically, also, if we consider this world to be Maya, why take care of the world? Why take care of ecology? Why take care of anything at all? So that is certainly not the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a misunderstanding. And even many impersonalist scholars now are saying that that is a wrong application of impersonalism. Because while we are living in this world, we have to consider this world to be real, even if ultimately it's false. Anyway, so this is also a very damaging worldview. We live in the world when we consider this world to be false. So these are the implications. Now that will bring me to the last part. I talk about the implication of the Bhakti worldview, the devotional worldview, in terms of the transformation it brings in. So impersonalism is largely the Indian history, the Indian medieval history especially. So now India is to some extent rising at the geopolitical level, and it is largely by becoming assertive and serious about this world also. Now the Bhakti worldview, it is highly empowering. How is it empowering? So I talk about 3 points over here. Each of it will take 1 hour. No, it won't. So now when we say this world is real and the other world is now that is the Gita's teaching. At the same time, there is a difference. Let's talk about one way to understand this. We are here in the world. For most of us, in the journey of life, the world initially is very big. And the other world, whether it is God or however you conceive the other world, the divine, that is small. So when I was introduced to Bhakti about 30 years ago, I started talking about it to all my relatives and friends. And one of my uncles told me, yeah, I believe in God. I have a very good relationship with God. I said, very good relationship. I said, mutual non-interference. He's happy there, I'm happy here. Now, for many people, they may consider God to be completely irrelevant. So this is the way we may function initially. But as there is spiritual growth, what happens is that the world becomes small and God becomes big. The important thing is not the world becomes small, the world becomes small. Now, what is the advantage of the world becoming small? The world is a place of ups and downs. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gham. Happiness, distress, it always keeps coming. Now, if the world is very big in our mind, then what happens when the good things happen, we go way up. When the bad things happen, we go way down. And you all probably know people who are having extreme mood swings. Now, one day, that person has so much energy, I'll shake the whole world. And the next day, it seems the whole world can't shake them out of their bed. So it is like one day they go to job, maybe they get some encouragement, some appreciation from the boss. Oh, I love this job, it's the best job in the world. The next day they get some negative feedback and why did I ever take this job? What was I thinking? I hate this job. Or even relationships. I love you. I can't live without it. A couple of days later, I hate you. I can't live with you. So, if we take the world as very big, then every upheaval in the world becomes very big. Now, when the world becomes small for us, the ups and downs also become small. And this is where a person can be more stable, a person can be more reliable. At the same time, what happens when the world becomes small for us, we become externally peaceful. Peaceful because we understand that the world here is the ups and downs will come and go. So I may be going through a very tough time right now, but let time pass. Things will change. So let time pass. Don't do time pass, but let time pass. Now we become extremely peaceful. Now, beyond this, when God becomes bigger for us, God becomes bigger means what? God is always the biggest reality, but psychologically for us, we become aware that God is a bigger reality. In fact, when we do some spiritual practice and we come to a temple like for a satsang like this, we do some puja, we do some japa, we do some kirtan. The point of all this is to bring us in the presence of a bigger reality. Even people who are non-theistic, when they go to some place that is considered sacred, they feel some sense of peace over there. The vibes here are different. So they may not believe in God, but even there is experience, the vibes are different over there. So what happens is when we come in the presence of a reality far bigger than ourselves, that helps us become a little calmer. It helps us get a better perspective of life. So now, at one level, when we become spiritually connected, when the world becomes smaller and God becomes bigger for us, so the idea is that this world is a reality, no doubt. But the other world with God present in it is a bigger reality. It's a bigger reality. So this connection with God makes us internally joyful and internally purposeful. So I'll conclude with these 2 points about how this worldview can make us joyful and how it can make us purposeful. So now the idea that there is another world. The problem with detachment, people say, okay, become detached from things. People say that, okay, nowadays detachment or non-attachment is become somewhat of a cool word. Stoicism is becoming popular. Yes, but the problem with detachment or non-attachment is it seems to strip our life of joy. I was in Washington a month or so. The one young boy, he told me that, when good things happen, we can be happy. And when bad things happen, we can let go. I said, that's a very good idea. Unfortunately, psychologically impossible. It's like, say, if somebody is very, very, very big into cricket. Now, if India wins a cricket match, yeah, top of the world. If India loses the cricket match, I don't care about it. They say like that, but that's out of frustration. That's not about out of renunciation. So, to the extent we enjoy the positive, to that extent we will suffer the negative. If somebody gets pleasure in a romantic relationship and then there is a breakup, I'm detached. You can say you are detached, but to the extent there is joy in the relationship, to that extent there is going to be pain. So it's not possible to just accept the positive and to enjoy the positive and to let go of the negative. Psychologically, it is not possible. And theoretically, the idea is good, but psychologically, it doesn't work like that. So, so the question comes up: if we become detached, So if we are very much into some watching some movie, some TV show, and we get very involved in the character. And sometimes in a long running TV show, some big one major character decides that I don't want to be the show anymore. Maybe they've asked too much money, and the producer don't want to pay so much money. When that person leaves, and on the TV show, what happens is they have to kill off the character. Sometimes the kind of agony that people go through. There are some videos which show the popular character being killed. Hundreds of comments of people crying over it, expressing their agony. So, to the extent you enjoy something, when something bad happens, you cannot just be detached. So then, what is so detachment? How can we do that? If we get one side, it's like there are two sides of the coin. The more we enjoy the positive side of the duality, the more we will suffer the negative side of the duality. You just can't avoid it. It's like it's a wave. So if I enjoy the wave when it goes high, and the wave goes down, I feel fearful, I feel panicky. The solution for us is actually to find an anchor and to learn to hold on to that anchor. That the world's waves will go up and down, but our spiritual practices become like an anchor for us. And that anchor is what makes us peaceful. So, yes, the world will have its ups and downs, but if we have developed a relationship with God, with Krishna, through our practice of bhakti, yes, this thing came, this thing got lost. There's pain because of that, but there is something that is unchanging in my life. I can hold on to it. And we will still be hit by the waves, but we won't be swept away by the waves. And over a period of time, so initially, spirituality acts like an anchor for us. But if we keep practicing spirituality, eventually it becomes like an airlift for us. Airlift means what happens? That the same waves will come, but we are at a higher level. So we can be concerned about what is happening in the world, but like if we are lifted out of the waves, we'll be concerned. Are any of our friends there? But we will be concerned, but not threatened by it. We won't live in a constant state of fear and insecurity and existential dread. So, this is a spirituality can help us become peaceful amid life's ups and downs. And this is something which each one of us can do as a test case. Adopt some spiritual practices, participate, do some japa regularly, do some kirtan regularly, just 10-15 minutes every day. Just do it for some time. And then you will notice we do it for 1 month, 3 months. The same problem or a similar problem, which 3 months ago completely shaken us. Now we'll not be that. We will be able to stay calm. When I was in Silicon Valley, I was invited to speak at Salesforce. Now, there, among the many of these big companies now, they invite people to come to monks to do spiritual talks. Salesforce also has a mindfulness corner. So now they are at one level a corporate entity, but they found that if they give some time for some meditation, some mindfulness for their employees, then their employees stay calm, they perform better. And from their perspective, they don't have to pay so much for the mental health, physical health insurance for them. So, so the budget line is the bottom line, of course. But even from a utilitarian perspective, there is that benefit. So meditation is actually cheaper than therapy and is much more effective than therapy if we can do it. Some people may need therapy also. It's not nothing substitute, but it can be a prevention. So this is where we can become spiritually peaceful because we understand, yes, the world has ups and downs, but I have a connection with something which is bigger and stronger. Then the last part is I talk about spiritually peaceful and spiritually or internally purposeful. So purposeful is that if we understand the nature of the world, if I am here and say God, Krishna is over here, and this is the world, then one version of spirituality is just turn away from the world and go to the other world, go to Krishna. But what the Gita teaches us is that we function in the world. And it is through this world that we ultimately attain Krishna. So while this is one way, this is the recommended way of doing it. That whatever abilities we have, swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Through your work, worship that Lord. And through your work, you can attain that. So a more holistic worldview is that God doesn't just exist in the spiritual world or in the temple, but God exists everywhere. God exists in our office, God exists in our home, God exists in our heart. So everywhere is the domain where we can serve the Lord. And the idea in this worldview is that what we have, what we have is a gift from God. The particular ability, the particular talents, the particular interest that we have, these are gifts given to us by God. And what we do with what we have is our gift to God. What we have is a gift from God. What we do with what we have is our gift to God. So Arjuna was a student of the Bhagavad Gita, had innate talent in Arjuna. And that was a gift. And he worked very hard to develop that gift. He practiced diligently, performed austerity, he went to a competent teacher, and he developed those abilities. And by that, he was able to do great service for Krishna in this world. So now our abilities may not be as extraordinary or as prominent as Arjuna's, but we all have certain gifts. And now in this conclude one last point over here, that when our focus is only in this world, so what happens is we want to, maybe if we don't have this bigger picture of God, our vision is only in this world, there are two problems that come up. Sometimes we may feel that I am not good enough. That maybe I'm not smart enough, I'm not fluent enough, I'm not fair enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. I don't have enough talents to actually do something with it. And the other feeling, so if we feel that if our vision is only I am here and the world is here, if I feel I don't have enough talents, then I feel insecure. And if I feel that, okay, I have some talent, I'm doing so much work, but somehow the world is not recognizing me. And that is where we feel that life is unfair. Now, this leads to a sense of resentment. And among the various emotions that can afflict and disempower us, these two, a sense of unworthiness and a sense of unfairness, a sense of insecurity and a sense of resentment. These two are the most damaging. So insecurity is a huge problem. A lot of people have low self-esteem, insecurity, and then depression. What is my exit? I don't have any abilities to do it. I don't, and we always say in every society and culture, certain abilities will be glamorized. And if those who have those abilities, those get glamorized. Other abilities may also be of value. The problem is if we are looking only at what the world will recognize and glamorize, and we feel I just don't have what it takes to make it in the world. In India, we use the word crack an exam. If somebody does very well in IIT, JEE, or some other exams, they crack an exam. Sometimes you crack an exam, and sometimes you are cracked by the exam. So you feel I just am not good enough. So that could be a problem. And the other problem is we may work very hard, but the world's reciprocation is never enough. And this is where if our vision is fixed only on the world, we may work in a company and we feel, I'm not getting enough praise, I'm not getting enough recognition. And if we are taking care of our family, we feel that I'm not being valued. My mother may feel I'm doing so much. I may have a job and I have to take care of my family. I'm doing so much. Nobody values what I'm doing. And if a father is there, he feels I'm working so hard. but my family is always complaining about it. So everybody will feel that their life is being unfair. The problem is that this vision, the problem is there's a particular specific problem we can address, we can try to address. But eventually, if our vision is fixed on the world, these two things, insecurity and unfairness, these will dog us all the time. That's why the Gita offers us a bigger vision. Yes, we try to function in the world, but we function in the world in a mood of service to Krishna. And when we're functioning in the world in the mode of service to Krishna, it is the reciprocation we get is also from Krishna. So that is why when Gita talked about Nishkam Karma, it talked about be detached, work for, do your work in a mood of detachment. Now, what does it mean? It doesn't mean be apathetic, be irresponsible. It means have a higher vision for your life. That we have been given some abilities and we use those abilities in a mood of service to Krishna. Now, whether those abilities make a visible difference in the world or not, whether they're appreciated in the world or not, it's important. But that's not the most important thing. So, if this whole idea of being recognized and appreciated in the world, hmm, this was not so much emphasized in the past. Why? Because it was understood that this world is like a pathway to the other life. We all are born in the world and we all have certain roles in the world. And if we play our roles, we will go to a better life next. We, of course, try to make a better life as much as we can in this world. But our whole sense of self worth does not come from how much we are recognized in this world. Mhm. That it is, we all have certain roles to play. We play those roles, and if we play those roles, we try to make life better over here. But ultimately, by doing our roles responsibly in a mode of service to God, we will move to a better place. So if we are recognized in the world, that is great. Mhm. So this particular implication is that we can get uh, recognition in the world, reputation, fame in the world, and we can get satisfaction in our art. So the words in Sanskrit are Abhyuday and Shreyas. Abhyuday is more like achievement. So not everybody will achieve spectacular things in the world's eyes. Mhm. So that was the communist idea. Like what happens is everybody gets a participation certificate for whatever you do. I mean, everybody gets a certificate, then nobody's certificate has any value. It is like if we try, we cannot make everybody an achiever in the world. Some people have talent and some people will be achievers. There is achievement and there is enrichment. So when we play our roles in a mode of service to God, we may or may not always get achievement, but we will get enrichment. So, if we are only seeking achievement, whether that is enrichment or not, this is dark. But the achievement will not satisfy us. We may achieve something, somebody gets, nowadays people want to get influencers. They get 1 million followers. Why does he or she have 2 million followers? There will always be somebody who has more and will be dissatisfied. Now, if there is no achievement and no enrichment, that's a very dark life. But if there is achievement and enrichment, that is the best. But if there is no achievement but there is enrichment, still that is bearable. Hmm? Now this is most unbearable. And if there is recognition but no achievement but no enrichment. Now this is something similar to what we call as comfortably miserable. Like a person is popular but they are empty within. So this is actually the most deceptive. So for us, the Gita says that we can aim for recognition or achievement in the world, but we should not lose sight of enrichment. So whatever we do, if we do it in a mood of service to the Lord, okay, I'm a mother, I'm a software engineer, I am beyond all these, I'm a devotee. I'm a soul who's a part of God. And let me play my roles in a mood of service to. If I do that, yes, I may get reciprocation from the immediate role that I'm playing. If you get it, that's wonderful. But if we don't get it, if that's not enough, still we know that Krishna is watching, Krishna is appreciating. One of the names of Vishnu is Nimisho Nimisho. He says that. The Vishnu Sahasranama, it says Animisho Nimisha Swagri Vachas Patirudavaradi. So Animisho and Nimisho, what it means is that Krishna, when we are trying to do some service, Krishna unblinkingly notes even the smallest of services. He notes the services and he rewards the services. And Draupadi was with, when Krishna was in Khandav, in the Indraprastha, Krishna and Arjuna were chatting, and Draupadi came and wanted to offer some fruit to Draupadi. He saw they were chatting intimately, they were going away. Krishna took a knife and started cutting the fruits. Knife slipped and his finger got cut. Draupadi came running over there and she ripped off her sari as a tying a bandage to Krishna. She was in anxiety, but Krishna was looking at her with a serene smile and said, "Oh, Draupadi, I will not forget what you have done. And what did you do? I'll reward you for this." And he rewarded her with unlimited hope. So Krishna is unblinking. He notices even the smallest of services. And he's also there, he's blinking. What that means is, if we are trying to serve sincerely, and sometimes we make a mistake, Krishna blinks and overlooks the mistake. So this is Krishna. And this is the Lord that we are ultimately having the opportunity to connect with through the messages of the Gita. The Lord is with us, and the Gita calls us to be with the Lord, to make Him the bigger reality, and then redefine our roles in the light of a bigger reality. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. We discussed the topic of how the Gita's worldview can empower us. The broad topic is, we discussed the acronym. What was it? WIN. So, the W was worldview. So I talk about the 4 worldviews based on, whichever worldview we adopt, we can say that life is tough in the universal truth. And because life is tough, so what do? We try to adopt some way of making sense of life. So either this world is real or false, and the other world is real or false. So what are the 4 worldviews that come up because of this? Materialism. So materialism, nihilism is neither of them is real. Then impersonalism, and then devotionalism. So we discuss how each of these has an impact. That is, if you go into the implication of the worldviews. If we consider the implication of it all, then we saw that the materialistic worldview, it leads us to, it actually leads us to desire, raga. But we talked about how there are 3 ways. We try to create a political paradise, we end up creating a nightmare. Try to create a technological paradise. At a level we become comfortably miserable. Or we just go into a virtual world and we start taking it too seriously at the cost of a real relationship and real meaningful activity. Then nihilism, it just leads to total despair. Now, people may not be having this at a philosophical awareness, but at a psychological level, this is very much there, unfortunately. That's why there's no meaning. So even what animals are doing, that is survive and reproduce. Our so-called very progressive Western civilization is not giving people enough motivation to do even that. And that is a serious problem. It requires some serious thinking. Why is it like that? And then there is impersonalism. So impersonalism, it leads to dread. It leads to just a great level of apathy toward the world. And we talked about how this happened in medieval India. And this is the worldview which empowers us the most. So how do we empower? That transformation, that's where I discussed in the last part. So for us, while both worlds are real, we understand that initially the world is very big and God is small. But as we grow, the world becomes small and God becomes big. And this makes us externally peaceful because we don't take the world's duality so seriously. It makes us internally two things. One is internally joyful. Internally joyful and internally. So actually, I was talking about how internally joyful and purposeful. So how does that happen? So if internally peaceful we become, because what the world will always have dualities, but we get like a anchor, and then eventually we get a airlift, by which we rise above the world. We become firm but not weak. We purposeful and joyful. We understand that I am in the world, God is above the world, and what I have is God's gift to me. What I do with what I have is my gift to God. So understanding each one of us has a role to play that gives us a sense of purposefulness. And when we are not looking for recognition only from the world, you understand that in the world there are some people who will have achievements, but everyone can have enrichment. So what the Bhakti world does is it gives us this enrichment, because we connect through our roles in life, we connect with Krishna, and the connection with Krishna gives us enrichment. Now, if we can get achievement and enrichment, both, that's wonderful. But even if we don't get achievement, we have enrichment, still life is good. But if we have achievement without enrichment, both of those are bad. So one of them could be worse, but actually having achievement without enrichment makes our life empty. So the Gita offers us a pathway by which we can have inner enrichment wherever we might be in our lives. And in the course of time, we all may move towards worthwhile achievement in the world. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, please. Do you have more? Yeah, sure. Okay.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class association. I have a two-part question. Firstly, is the idea of self-action on Nishkam karma compatible with ambition? And the second part of the question is, where does one draw the line between healthy aspiration and ego-driven desire?
Good questions. So first is that, is there a, if you see the Bhagavad Gita itself, 2.47 is the verse we often quoted, karma nevadikaraste, is non-attached action. But before that, there is 241. It says, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuruna. So there's a big difference between setting goals and being attached to results. So the idea is, the Gita is not against setting goals. Goals are what we set before we do some action. Results are what we get after we do the action. So if I am here and say this is my particular role within which I have some ambition. Now what is in our control is what we put into the effort. Now what we get out of it, you naturally say what I put in proportional to that I'll get. It's true to that, but it may not always work like that. The Gita is saying that this we may not know, but focus on this. So should we have ambition? Of course. Arjuna had the ambition of becoming a great archer, the greatest archer. So we can always have ambitions, but let the ambition be focused more on maximizing our contribution rather than maximizing our recognition. Let me increase my contribution. So most people, when they say ambition, what happens is it can go in the direction primarily of recognition. I want to have a big house. I want to have this. I want to be in the C suit or whatever. So those are cool. That's fine. But what we need to focus on is our contribution. So if our ambition is focused more on our contribution than our recognition, then we can be empowered to do the maximum. And sometimes some people may get recognition without contribution, but that is unsustainable. They themselves will not be able to sustain when life presents real challenges to them. And they may end up misleading those who are under them and counting on them. Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. Prabhuji, you mentioned that whatever we do, we should try to do it and like with the mode of service to Krishna. But I feel a lot of times we lack awareness for it. That is one. And second is, let's say if we are aware and we want to do everything in mode of service to Krishna, we sometimes lack motivation. Right? It might be due to maybe the work that we do is not like evil enough. So how can we work on motivation and awareness for it?
Yeah. Generally, when I talk about Krishna becoming bigger for us, how does Krishna become bigger? It is a psychological principle that whatever we expose ourselves to, whatever we bring into our consciousness, that will become bigger. So generally what happens is, if this is my consciousness, that initially Krishna is one component in my consciousness. Yeah, I have 100 things in my life. I have my job, I have my this, I have my hobbies, I have my family, and then okay, going to temple is also one thing, or doing some spirituality is also one part of my life. And that's good. So at least like giving entrance to Krishna. So this is my consciousness, and this is Krishna. But if we keep doing this regularly, eventually what will happen is you'll start realizing that Krishna is a much bigger reality. And that it is our consciousness that gains entrance. That means that it's not that we merge into Krishna, but there is an immersion where we gain shelter, we gain safety, we gain security. So initially we give entrance, eventually we gain entrance. And then that happens by regular experience of Krishna, regular exposure of our consciousness to Krishna. That's why that awareness is not just intellectual awareness. And awareness comes by regularly remembering Krishna, by regularly chanting his holy name, by regularly coming to associate with devotees, by regularly reading about Krishna. By that, Krishna will become the bigger reality. So that is abhyas, the practice. And simultaneously, vairagya means the other things you already begin our consciousness are not really important. We don't expose ourselves to them so much. So, okay, this scandal over here, this gossip over there. All those things we don't expose ourselves, they'll become smaller in our consciousness. So that's one thing. Now, as far as the motivation is concerned, motivation is a very individual and you could say unreliable thing. That motivation is sometimes come and motivation is sometimes go. That's why what I prefer to focus on is meaning rather than motivation. What does meaning mean? That right now, every moment of our life, we have a choice. That okay, in the next 1 hour, what I'm going to do, is it going to add meaning to my life or is it not going to add meaning to it? Maybe I spend some time with a good friend, become closer to them. Like something meaningful. I just spend time there and just a mindless surfing or some reading. That doesn't add meaning to me. So in general, the meaning in our life is proportional to the responsibility that we do. Most people think meaning is proportional to recognition. If what I'm going to do, say if I'm going to give a talk for 5 people, I think should I give it not? If I'm going to 500 people, oh, I should do the talk. So we often think of meaning in terms of recognition. And then that is a very superficial way of it. Sometimes it may require to look at that thing from that perspective. But if you consider, like I said, the difference between being something for everyone or everything for someone. So if somebody becomes a mother, a homemaker, there's something for everything for their child. So now we may not get recognition over it, but if we take responsibility, that can bring a deep sense of meaning to us. So in the sense, now what do I mean by responsibility in this context? This is the situation I am in. What can I make the best out of this? So, like motivation comes, that's well and good. But if motivation is not there, we can try to find some ways we can motivate ourselves. But if we can't, let's focus on simple choice. Do I want my life to be meaningful or meaningless? Nobody wants to say that, okay, the biggest achievement of my life was every day I watch 8 hours TV every day. Or that I hold my whole life. Nobody wants that in their lives. Unless, of course, they're a professional TV reviewer or something like that. That's different. And they're creating some meaning over it. But we don't think of meaning in that big picture. Let's talk in the Instead of thinking what is the meaning of life or what is the meaning of my life, ask the question, what can I do right now to bring more meaning to life? And that itself can inspire us to do something worthwhile. And a focus on meaning is actually much more accessible for us than a focus on motivation. Okay? Okay. Yes, please. Yeah, please.
Points in the question that I want to answer. So the quadrants which you mentioned are something like a cycle that all of us undergo in our lifetime. And
Which ones? The enrichment or the four worldviews?
four worldviews, like the
It's not necessary that we have to go through all the other worldviews before we come to the fourth worldview. So we might grow up in a culture where one particular worldview is there. And then we can move from that worldview to the devotional worldview, to our understanding, to our experience, to our own conscious deliberation and decision. So we don't have to go through all the worldviews.
I'm praying to God that requesting or manifesting that this is what I want from my life. Where does that come from?
That's fair enough. See, the problem is not that we have desires and we take our desires to God. The problem is when that if I am here and say God is here. Now having desires is natural. But sometimes what happens is we make those desires into demands. And sometimes they go beyond demands to become ultimatums. So that is where it becomes the problem. So we can definitely have a desire and we can express that desire. But then we can have a mood of that, okay, maybe I don't know, with my intelligence, I feel if this thing happens to me, this will be really good for me. I'll be in a better place in my life, emotionally, financially, relationally, whatever. Then I can play my part in your plan better. I can serve you better. So please, my Lord, please let this happen. At the same time, if this is not your plan, then please help me to understand what it is that you want to do in this situation. Please let me not be lost. So we can have that, we can express the desire, but we can have an acceptance. That it's like I mentioned earlier, one key thing for devotion is humility. And humility means that we understand that my vision is finite. So what I function with my finite vision or finite vision is not the final vision. Therefore, it's not that we have to reject our finite vision, we accept it. With my finite vision, this is what I think will be good for me. Express my petition, but you have a bigger picture. So please guide me how you want me to face the situation. Okay? Yes, please. I'll take one of the more questions. Yeah.
Thank you for such a nice, beautiful talk. My question is regarding the worldviews. So when you explained this world is real and there is another world, are we talking in terms of like the other world is like physical in nature or spiritual in nature?
It's
Or at one point, sorry, as you said, like is it a spirituality? Then that spirituality is in within us everywhere. Like Bhagavan Krishna says, like I'm everywhere. So are we always looking like externally, like upwards and kind of have an attachment to it, or when can we look inwards and see and experience the same?
okay, good question. So Krishna is present within our hearts, and the spiritual world is within us. But at the same time, it is not just within us. There's also another domain of reality. Parastasmat bhavonyo vyakto vyakta sanatana. So the idea is that the spiritual can be understood at two different levels. The spiritual is a condition, and the spiritual is also a location. It's a condition in the sense of a state of awareness. Like in the world also, if the divine becomes bigger for us, then we will be in a much more spiritual state of consciousness. At the same time, our stay in this world is temporary. And at the end of our life, we will go somewhere. So where will we go? That is a location, that will be a destination. So spiritual is also a destination that we can attain beyond this. The spiritual world is within us. The spiritual world is also beyond this entire world. So the thing which comes repeatedly in Bhagavad Gita, that Sarva Bhutastham Atmanam Sarva Bhutancha. God, the ultimate reality, is that which Krishna is the one who is present in everything and in whom everything is present. So sometimes spiritual can go to both extremes. One is let's talk about only God being present in this world. That is philosophically called as the immanence of God. That God is an immanent reality. God is within nature. So God is within. Some tradition may emphasize only that, and some tradition may only emphasize God is beyond. But the understanding is God is both. God is both immanent and God is transcendent. So while we are in this world, we focus on accessing and connecting with the divinity which is within us. But at the same time, that God is also present. Say, we can say God is within us, but when we come to a place like a temple, we experience that presence more. That presence is more manifestable. So, and then there's a world where the God's presence is most manifest. And we also want to attain that world eventually. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Two questions, we finish with this.
She talked about when we, she talked about when we focus more on the world, we generally have two feelings of insecurity or unfairness. And a lot of times when we are lost in those feelings, like we're feeling I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, whatever, it becomes difficult that negative self-talk to come out of that and to focus on Krishna on the other side. And sometimes life is unfair. Like it's not just that I can get a promotion. It's like somebody died or somebody did very good. So how does one come out of those feelings? Both of those feelings leads one to the
Yeah.
So how do you make it comfortable when that happens?
See, insecurity, many times we think about ego, the opposite of ego is humility. But actually, the opposite of ego is insecurity. And in between these two is humility. So when we feel insecure, it is we are focusing on what we don't have. So ego is that I am everything, I can do everything. I am basically God. Insecurity is I am nothing, I can do nothing, I am worthless. I am zero. But humility is I am something, I can do something. So maybe our role is not going to be as big as we would like it to be. Maybe our talents are not as outstanding as we would like it to be. So we focus on what we have rather than what we lack and try to utilize them more. That is the way to overcome insecurity. And also that is the same principle that we use to overcome unfairness also. Like I mentioned, my mother told me that whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. So basically what happens is that I had some physical limitation that is, I could say, is unfair. But when I started studying, I started reading, I noticed that I could remember things well, I could articulate things well. So some part of me settled down that this physical disability, I didn't do anything to deserve it from this life's perspective. But then I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability also. So then life is in the big picture fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means sometimes we get less than what we deserve and sometimes we get more than what we deserve. So we need to focus on how life is fair to us rather than it's unfair to us. There are some people who trouble us a lot. There are some people who go out of their way to be kind to us. So we can't be grateful for all situations in our life. But we can be grateful in all situations in our life. By not looking at that particular situation, but by looking at what we have been given to face that situation. If somebody suddenly gets cancer or something, it's very difficult to be grateful for the cancer. Wow, right? It will be dehumanizing to expect somebody to be grateful for that. But I have basic good health. Maybe I have supportive community or family. I have health insurance. Maybe this is curable. I have some spiritual practices that I can keep my sanity during this time. So those are things we can be grateful for. And that way, we can find pockets of fairness instead of focusing on what's may seem like vast plains of unfairness. And what we focus on will with time become bigger. Yeah. Last question to you. Okay, there are two questions.
Go to the back, go to the back. So,
Give me over.
Thank you. So when you live on meeting the word we use was not so much um, um, the two word very said distinction is you use your talents that God's given you.
What we have is God's gift to us.
Okay.
What we do with what we have is our gift to God.
Oh, yeah, and let me use that as devotion for those people that become unsung heroes. How do they deal with their ego or the basic elements of wanting to belong or be recognized for what they do?
The more the world becomes external, as the materialism makes it, this world is the only real world. And it's like, in many ways, if an event is not reported and publicized, then the event didn't happen. It becomes like this. So news is not what happens, news is what gets reported. So that's the worldview that comes. So glorious is not the action that is done, glorious is the action that is recognized. So when we live in such an external worldview, it becomes difficult to sustain anything. Mhm. That's one of the reasons why, psychologically speaking, why parenting is getting neglected, why people don't want to have children. So many economic and other factors. The one thing is that the world we live in, parenting is not glamorized. These traditional cultures, they consider parenting a very important responsibility. But in today's world, it's not just for women, it's for men also. It's not really glamorized for anyone. So it is a very important thing. So that's why we need some sense of that life's meaning does not lie only in the potential that I have. So there is a sense of valuation that comes internally that I am doing something meaningful. And the more society takes that sense away from people, then it also got a lot to do with parenting. This Karmande Vadhikaraste, that verse. What do we praise our children for? Do we praise our children for the efforts that they put in, or do we praise our children for the results that they get? And actually, if they get results, it's probably we praise them. But if that is all that we praise them for, we can observe our children. If children are studying diligently throughout the year for a particular exam, and then they don't do so well in the exam. Do we criticize them for how they did not do well, or do we appreciate? You put in, you did your part, you put in good effort, and that is a good job. So often self-worth is fostered by social worth. So how society values us, not just everybody's society, but the people who are important for us. So we have to have around us at least some people who will foster intrinsic self-worth. So in the past, the culture was such that, okay, I have a family, taking care of my family is a source of intrinsic self-worth for me. This is what gives meaning to my life. So, but now that sense has been eroded. So throughout history, there have been heroic soldiers who fought and sacrificed their lives. Now the idea of building memorials is something which is recent. In the First World War, Second World War, we have some memorials. But throughout history, so many people sacrifice their life. Who build memorials to them? There was a sense of beauty over it. The sense that this is what I'm meant to do. So unfortunately, that sense is being eroded. That we can do something meaningful. But if we recognize this one, but even not recognized, it still has value. So how do we do that? Maybe within a small circle, the values are appreciated. Maybe we have close friends. Now, maybe even one friend appreciates what we do. Maybe nobody else does that. So that gives us some valuation. Sometimes it's, we appreciate ourselves, not in the self-congratulatory sense, but in a sense of encouraging and motivating ourselves. So we have to find that we cannot depend on the world information. That will make for a very unstable and unhappy life. Okay. Last question.
Can you discuss or like expand on how passion, meaning, well, passion, devotion, and meaning interact? I often see passion listed as an attachment that blocks devotion. But
Yeah, so
say,
it's good,
go ahead. Yeah.
good question actually. See, words and their meanings change with time. Like say nowadays the word wicked has a positive connotation. That is a wicked party that I went. Okay, something like that, you know. So the meaning of words changes with time. So the word pride also nowadays has a positive connotation. Like hotel pride, hotel executive pride. I've not seen any hotel arrogance till now. So, so I think the word passion is nowadays acquiring a much more positive connotation. So passion is something like the deep and inner interest or a drive or a longing for us. So that was not the sense in which the word rajas is translated as passion. But within Varnashram, each varna, each person, say somebody Brahmana, Brahmana will have passion for Brahmanical work. A Kshatriya will have passion for Kshatriya work. So the idea of having a passion in life, it's very much central to the idea, to the teachings of the Gita. That we all have certain innate interests which can become our drives, and they can become the the, the driving source of meaning and motivation for us in our lives. So that's there. So now devotion is understanding that those drives are gifts given to us by God. That the talents that we have, they don't come in isolation. Krishna says, what is that? Verse in 7th chapter. That simple two-liners. Rasam of the Kaunteya, Prabhashi Sisuya, Prabhava. Pranava Sarvesh, Vedeshu Chandra, Ke Paurusham Rishu. Paurusham Rishu, I am ability in human beings. So our ability, whatever ability anyone has, that's a gift of God, that's a manifestation of God. You know, a talent in one, a gift in one is a gift for everyone. If one person has a beautiful singing voice, they can bring so much joy in it. One person has great painting ability. He can make a painting that can bring so much, a deep sense of aesthetic, sublime joy for people. If one person can do nice decoration and they build a beautiful temple, they decorate everything beautifully, whatever. So the point is that our passion, if it is coupled with devotion, then it becomes extremely powerful. So the passion itself can give some sense of meaning to us, and that's good. But the problem is that it will not be adequate. So sometimes we may do a lot of, call it a passion, do work, we get some sense of meaning from it, but we fall short of it. But it doesn't last so much. But so if our passion is coupled with devotion, then that can give us meaning in this world and a meaning beyond this world. A meaning that is externally valuable, but it's also internally very shared. So much of what I spoke today is given in these two books. This is especially the Gita for the CEO. There's a chapter here called Work as Worship, where I talk about this concept of gifts and inner enrichment. And so this is, I've taken the wisdom of the Gita and presented in a way that is relevant and appealing for corporate audiences. And it is not just for corporate audience, anyone wants to apply the Gita practically in their life. So there are some simple illustrations and diagram that I was making, which help us understand the concept of the Gita. And I presented it in a conversation between two characters. So that's why it makes it very accessible. The Gita is only a conversation. And HarperCollins asked me to write HarperCollins asked me to write this book because they felt that the Gita deserves a presentation that is from a contemporary perspective. And Ikigai is becoming popular, Stoicism is becoming popular. So the Gita is also getting presented. So this is another book. So this is a book, more devotional book of prayers inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. So there are, this is the 122 prayers. I showed a picture of this book also. We recited one prayer from here. So this is a more of a devotional, less analytical approach to the Gita. And I've taken various themes based on the Gita's verses. If we are feeling lonely, if we are feeling purposeless in our life, if we are feeling too much unhealthy cravings in our life, if you're feeling misunderstood, So there are prayers for all situations. There are a very accessible table of contents where you can look at the prayers and whatever your emotional state or prayer need is, you just go to those prayers. Many people have told me that before they start their mantra chanting or before they start their spiritual practices, this can help them to calm and center themselves and then immerse themselves in the future. So both these books are available and I'll be here for some time in case you want me to sign the books or if you have any further questions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.